All right, hello and welcome to the Theotivity podcast. My name is Thaddeus, and I actually have to begin today's episode with a huge apology. This episode was recorded back in May of 2023, and I am only now getting around to posting it. I am so sorry. This past year has been really busy with a lot of challenges and changes in my life personally. So I'm so sorry for the delay. But even with the delay, I think that this conversation will bless a lot of you. The guest for this episode is a successful Christian entrepreneur who I have the privilege of calling also a friend. I've known him for a long time, ever since my days growing up in Trinidad. We served in ministry together, we played in bands together, we've been camp counselors together. He's just an all-around amazing guy, and I really genuinely mean that. He started a business called the Student Hub, which is one of the most successful online learning platforms for high school students around the Caribbean. In less than 2 years, Kerwin Springer became the #1 home for Caribbean students with millions of minutes of watch time from hundreds of thousands of students around the region of the Caribbean. His channel has amassed over 100,000 followers as of January in 2023, and it continues to grow even to this day. His business is thriving and flourishing and helping so many. The Student Hub, it continues to grow both in terms of the Caribbean students that they help to prepare for their exams, and also in terms of the faculty and employees that he employs to help him run the Student Hub. So it's an amazing concept and a model. And in this episode, we talk a little bit about his vision, how it got started, and what a Christian vision of business and entrepreneurship has to do with all of this. And, there was a ton of great insights and wisdom that he's gained from his experience. And I know I would love to see a lot more and more Christians becoming successful entrepreneurs, providing valuable goods and services that help people with excellence, as well as Kerwin's doing. So I hope that this episode would inspire perhaps a few more out there to start businesses and services to the glory of God. So let's jump on in. The Theotivity Podcast. Theotivity is the place where theology and creativity come together. Here you'll find audio narration of articles, episodes exploring the faith, culture, the arts and media, systematic theology, apologetics, guest interviews with Christian thinkers, creatives, pastors, theologians, and much more. At theotivity.com, you'll find articles and resources to help you grow in your faith, as well as a portfolio of creative works. Like, share, and subscribe to stay up to date on the latest content. Well, welcome to Theotivity. As you guys can see, I'm at a new location here, and with a guest. I'm actually coming to you guys from beautiful home island, the motherland of Trinidad and Tobago. Yes, represent. And I'm sitting on here with Mr. Kerwin Springer, the czar and dictator of Student Hub.
The managing director.
Okay, sorry. Same thing. But yeah, we're sitting on here to talk a little bit about what he's built here at the Student Hub, and also just a little bit about how his Christian faith has impacted that. Kerwin is a Christian, loves the Lord, serves him faithfully. We've actually served in ministry a few times together in different contexts, in more musically.
Yeah.
But yeah, looking forward to this conversation. I hope that you guys also benefit from it. So let me just jump straight in. Kerwin, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing fine.
Yeah, it's great, eh? This is like the first time we're going through this.
Brand new.
But okay, for all who don't know the inside joke there, we started recording and kind of feel that that's the second time around. And that feels like you're going to die. And
I think the audio coming out like white. I feel like if you want to just say it.
No, so good audio.
A few moments later.
But Kerwin, tell us a little bit about the Student Hub, right? And just how it got started, a little bit of the history of how you got this idea of even starting something like this.
All right, so the Student Hub, the name itself, students voted on the name, so there was no spectacular thing into the name. I just put on that name. What do you want to call this? And the Student Hub won any votes. But the idea was that I am a maths teacher. My name is Kerwin Springer. I'm a maths teacher, and I'm teaching for probably 15 years, and Sometime in 2018, I think it was January 2018, start of 2018, my wife's father died, and it really left an impact on me. Like life could just snap at any moment and go at any moment.
Yeah.
Because he died on an accident. Um, pause. Dies out. Manos. So
After the Saharas.
cut that off. So I decided, like, all the talents and what you knew me under, I felt like that creativity was being stifled in a school environment as a public school teacher. And I started a YouTube channel, and that became my outlet for that. And I uploaded very creative videos, very helpful videos, very timely videos for students. And like all YouTube channels, it started with one subscriber who was not you.
Or your wife.
Or my wife. But it grew. We have the plaque on the wall to show the 100,000. And from that, the student hub was a natural extension of the YouTube channel, like the business side of it. So what we do on YouTube and on social media is free, but the student hub does extra lessons. So students can, if they want additional access, they access the student hub, and right, that's proven to be very successful.
So explain that concept, because that's a foreign concept to a lot of foreigners. Extra lessons. What is that?
So you have school,
Which is public school.
Yeah. And then in Trinidad, there's a strong culture of it, in Guyana, and some of the other Caribbean countries as well. So preparing for exams, students undertake additional lessons. So in the student hub, we facilitate that. So math, English, chemistry, every subject you can think of, business and sciences, POA, POB, we facilitate that, and we have additional lessons at the ending of the day, 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, that students can tune into online as opposed to going to a physical location. And we have some of the best teachers in the region in different subject areas, and we provide those lessons.
Right. And this is done through like our online, so Zoom or Google Meets.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what's the class sizes like?
So our median class size, I would say, is about 15, but high demand teachers like myself can go all up to 200, 300.
Humble brag.
Facts. So can go up to a really high level.
Yeah.
We have different techniques to manage and still give the same amount of value to students in really large classes, but like they can interact with the teachers, as we are saying, and then there are tutors available, and we have regular assignments and reports and that kind of thing.
Right. So what would you say sets the student hub apart from some of the other, let's say, competitors who are trying to do the same thing?
Well, as we were discussing previously, I think the secret sauce is Jesus. So I would accredit a lot of my success to my upbringing and my belief. So when people try to emulate the student hub, and there are many, they emulate mostly the front. They emulate what they see on social media, what they see as the platforms, the techniques, what we use, that kind of thing, the business model. But it's very hard for them to emulate the back end and the drive and how
the heart behind it.
The heart, yes, exactly. And the purpose also behind it. And when I started the channel, the only thing I wrote in there about was helping students win. It kind of transferred over into the student hub, and our goal is just to help students win, and we attack that goal very strong. So also,
I'll just add in there from our previous recording this, is winning not just in the sense of only good grades.
Exactly.
From what you told me is winning all of life. Like you were talking about, you've had some students where you're like, I know this fella gonna fail maths. Right. But you're also helping them win in life skills too.
Yeah.
Right. And in how you approach basically counseling those young men.
So I heard, one of the things I heard, as I started teaching, I watched the older teachers, and I watched when they retire, and I watch different things, and they retire, and sometimes they retire as a shell of this. And for myself, teaching can really take out a lot out of you, and they what they give to the students at that age is not, they don't have nothing much to give again. So I decided that even students who people would write off and say, all right, he's not going to pass maths, I would give them I would still try to give them a good experience. They can't see, which is what a lot of people can say all over the world, Canada, Trinidad, everything.
Yeah.
My math teacher, I hate my math teacher.
Yeah.
They can't say that. They can say my math teacher, you really tried me and thing. And 2 years later down the road, they at the student hub. So I want to become a nurse. I ready to study maths now. I really ready. I ready to read.
Yeah.
I want to become a doctor. I want to become a police officer, whatever.
Yeah.
And you need maths, they're ready. And it would. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. So what, on that kind of note, right? Obviously your Christian faith is playing a big part in how you've built the culture of Student Hub, what it is, it represents, right? Talk a little bit to that. Like, what are some ways their Christian faith has impacted what you've built here and what you're trying to continue to build through Student Hub? Maybe if it's like specific Bible verses or even biblical principles, right? Yeah.
So I think one of the things that really helped me, apart from like just general being a Christian, hearing the word every Sunday and that kind of thing, is how I myself grew up. So I'm a pastor kid, and I was in positions, some volunteered, some pushed, where I was told, where I was in charge of certain things and responsible for certain things, and like groups and youth leader and different aspects like that.
Camp
band leader, and it really helped me. It transferred over into running a business like that, and it helped me to not only run a business, but to work with the business in a nice way. So like everybody who's in the student hub, past or present, can say that the atmosphere is 100% best ever. Please to work, the best ever. Please to work. So and that is saying a lot for people in the corporate world, right? And it really helps the back end, as I said, of the student have to run a really, 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 really great. And because of that, we are able to put out a good product and a good service.
Yeah.
I was saying before, Hananiah, Mishael, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Daniel, those are some of the persons I look to in the Bible of how I kind of deal with where I am, because a lot of what we do, I have to function within the space of the Ministry of Education and CXC, which is the examination body in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
So how I am able to dance in between those, that as well.
Yeah.
Plays a.
And you were saying before too, like without compromising on your Christian values.
Exactly.
And that we need more of people today, Christians particularly, right? Especially Christian, I think, businessmen who are running businesses and so on, because they are, whether they like it or not, they're going to become cultural influencers just because of the fact that your business will impact so many different people. It's important to be able to have convictions and to stand on them, right? To know that, okay, these are hills I'm willing to die on.
100%.
I mean, we look at, like, we were talking on the way here about, like, how some of the culture has kind of gone down the drain, seems to be.
Yeah.
And all of that, I think, is it falls back on the church and falls back on Christians, because we let those things happen. We let them slide. We didn't stand up and object back when we could.
I think the older generation has an apprehension to culture. Like, it's hard for them to separate changes in the generation and to distinguish what is just innocent culture and what is their old tradition and that they must use. Meaning, they allow the left, they allow politicians, they allow people who may not have the best interest in hand of their children to hijack the culture and use culture.
Yep.
I think what I do, I use culture as well. So I take culture back.
But we can't help but use culture. We all is like a fish saying, "I'm gonna get out of the water." Right?
But I think you could. I think you could speak in a foreign culture.
Yeah.
So you can use that. It's expired. So we don't understand. So the language that I teach in, the language that I run the business in, the language that I do all my social media influencing in, is a culture that the students can understand, and it's blended with Christ.
Yeah, absolutely. That comes true. I mean, I've seen some of your posts and so on. Even in the fact that you think to to stop and encourage students during, let's say, exam period.
Right.
That is something I think that comes out of convictions, that crisis changed in your heart,
Right.
It comes from a desire to love our neighbor, for example, right? And to empathize with them, to weep with those who weep, right? And that you rejoice with those who rejoice. Those are all biblical ways that the Christian culture comes out to you. Spurgeon used to talk about how we should be so saturated with the Bible that when someone pricks us, we read Bibline. That's what I love.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. It's with what you're doing here, and hopefully with what continues to be built. That Christian culture. Sometimes when we think about it, that's like, well, that means I have to put a Bible verse on everything or cross on it.
Yeah.
That is not it, right? It's more so that you are so saturated with the worldview of the Bible that it comes out naturally in everything that you do.
That's your patent would say. Your patent would say.
Good. Well, you talk a little bit about, why do you think, because like student home exploded. I remember, to me, it kind of feels like one day I see Kerwin doing this thing on YouTube and I was like, that's cute. That's nice, a little hobby. And the next thing is just like a multinational business. Not even joking, like the whole Caribbean you're serving here, right? And this is thousands of students. And that happened in a relatively short period of time. Maybe talk a little bit about that. Like, when did it officially start? And why do you think that there was such a need for what you're providing?
Okay, so it started before the pandemic. Although I'll say 2020 pandemic is really 2019, COVID-19. But the pandemic came in full swing after the student had already started. So, and before that, I was teaching online lessons as well. So it didn't start as a result of the pandemic, is what I'm saying. So, however, the explosion was because the audience for the business was created before the business. So my YouTube channel was already pretty much booming. I already had really large classes. So it was just a natural extension. It was like an overflow. So it overflowed into yes, everything was already proven. There was, although everyone has seen risk, oh my gosh, you resigned from a job, you're stable government teaching, he fumbled the bag. So people have seen risk, but I was seeing guaranteed success once I rely on my skills.
Right.
So the student hub just blossomed out of that. And I think I really tried to pick the best teachers that matched up with the student hub culture, that really matched up with that, right? Like, here's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And because of that, the quality from class to class remained the same. And remember, I said the student hub is after lessons. I don't know if I said that on this version of the recording. So but we have school classes and then we have the student hub.
Yeah.
The student hub has been used by now homeschoolers and people who not seeking after school lessons. So they just use the student hub alone and they are able to pass their exams. So
that's Actually, we were talking a little bit about homeschooling. I went off script here, but you want to talk a little bit to that in terms of like, what's going on in the Caribbean and Trinidad particularly, because there's a reason why there's a need for even something like the student hub to exist. If government education, and no knocks to the educators out there, right? But if it was supplying that need fully, there would be no need for lessons teacher. There would be no need for there wouldn't be a market for a student hub, right? But obviously something's lacking there. And you had shared that you're homeschooling. I don't know if that's
yeah, man, straight up.
All right.
Announced here.
But talk a little bit to that. Like, why is there that need for additional, like, something to supplement or even replace what is happening or not in governments? So
my perfect view on education, like my true view on education, is that it should be more tailored for each individual. So you yourself said that in the public school system is a one size fit all, one cap fit all. So homeschooling gives you a little more flexibility there. So there's just that to begin with, even without looking at the negatives. So
more opportunity for like a personalized.
Yeah. And I can say I have three sons. Three. One just got 1 month ago be him. So I have three sons, but two in school, homeschool,
right?
And I can see they require opposite things. And in school you will get one thing.
Right.
One is a brilliant, like, super genius, understands things way above his level. So you need somebody to. School is boring for him. School is boring, so you need somebody to give him more and inspire him. And the other one is he's really smart as well, but he's extra wild. So he needs a special kind of attention for discipline, and the school discipline matrix will not suit him.
Right.
So just those two alone, just two things alone was enough for me to homeschool. And then there's other things. There's other things like my youngest son was just going to school and bringing home all the latest viruses. And just getting into the house. So preschool, you just go, what's new on the virus menu? And next week, everybody in the house have the virus.
Yeah.
And then there's, of course, different beliefs. So if you I dropped my son off to school one day, and he's going with this big bag in school. He's strutting this bag behind him, and I watching my tiny little son that God gave me here walking up into his class, and he sit down, and I could see all the way up into his class, and he sat down, and I know he had to sit down at that desk for 6 hours, watch that board, write. It's something about the whole thing, just like to me, like it was this is not right. This is not how this was meant to be.
Yeah.
So you leaving your children for 8 hours, especially young children, in this environment, and it really relies on the teacher, the principal, the school. If you can find a really good private school, a really good even government school that does that, that's fantastic. But I think the chances of that very slim, especially in these times. And I just wasn't. I felt like that wasn't for us.
Makes sense. I mean, and then also too, it's a little bit different than Trinidad, but where we are in Canada and the rest of the West is a lot more progressed. Or regressed, you might say.
Yes.
There's a lot of explicit genders being pushed and ideologies that are
genders and agendas.
This is true. Yeah. That would be in total contradiction to the cause of Christ and what we believe, And like you were saying earlier, your child is very impressionable, especially at this age. They're a little sponge, right? They're picking up everything, and they don't have the discernment to filter through. Okay, what the teachers say, in fact, is good.
I am telling them to obey authority, so I am telling them to open up themselves to what the teacher is saying.
Yeah. So a little child, 5, 6 years old, the teacher tell them, hey, you come from a fish.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right?
That's softball compared to what they know.
Oh yeah, there's other things to tell them too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Let me move on. So what are some things that you've learned about starting a business, right? So Student Hub is now how many years old? Like 4 years?
3, 4.
Yeah, okay. So, let's say Kerwin 5 years ago, if you could talk to him now, and maybe have some buff up for him, if a rebuke, encouragement, or some advice, some wisdom that you've learned, this far in, what you would tell yourself?
I mean, 5 years ago, I don't have much buff up, to be honest.
Oh, yeah?
If you go 10,
okay,
I might have a little more.
All right.
If I go 10, I might have a little more to tell that Kerwin. But 5 years ago, I think I was already starting to see the vision and I need back there. What I would say is I would, if I could go back, I'd more catalyze everything.
Okay.
So I would, there's something that I tell my friends, especially those who venture into business. When my parents talk, and my grandparents talk, and my uncles and aunts, and those from that generation, they say, okay, well, grandpa had this piece of land, and land was cheap, and he didn't buy this land, and he sell this out, and now that is by the family, didn't own this whole stretch of this area, and that. And you remember, that used to be a grandfather, and now to buy that is it used to be $16,000, now is $1.6 million for the piece of same plot. So, and I think a part of entrepreneurship and online entrepreneurship especially was like that. It still is, where there's the land is cheap online,
right?
There's so attention, everything is so easy to grab.
Yep.
A lot of people are grabbing it, and sometimes not only right people are grabbing it. And I maybe in the future, my son might watch me and say, I was thinking that back then, you may watch me and say, well, you could have easily do this and easily run that, and you could have easily influenced so many people. That attention was so cheap back then. Now it's harder. It's harder for somebody to do what I did.
Yeah.
Because it's harder to start at Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, it's a little harder now. The attention is a little more expensive, and it's just going to get more and more expensive. So, I was making use of that. So, if I could go back, I would say, get on things quick. It's cheap right now, bro.
Right.
It's cheap right like.
That's a really good analogy of comparing it to land prices. Because that's so true. And the attention economy is the economy we're in today. Right. One of the books actually that I've been reading is called Hook Point. And the whole premise of that book is that you have 3 seconds to help people. Right?
I agree.
Yeah.
For someone, 3 seconds. Lots of reels and TikToks, and I agree.
Like people's attention spans are shorter than a goldfish. Like literally.
Yeah. 3 seconds is generous, but yes.
Yeah. So when you think about that, that's the attention economy that we live in. And then to teaching that as well, which is what you're doing, right? Like that's just another level of like reconsidering how we even communicate and adjusting and being able to be flexible in how you do that. I know we were talking about how some people are still going with old models, teaching and whatnot, and they're not realizing how that attention economy has changed, right? I think like the ones who will go forward and succeed in this economy as it stands right now anyways, are the ones who will be able to be flexible, recognize, okay, here's where we are. I could kick against the goats, so to speak, and complain till blue in the face about how people attention span so short, or I could work with what it is and then also start to discipleship them, to have a little bit more attention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So the Bible says, he that winneth a soul is wise.
Yeah.
He that teacheth maths. Those are blasphemy, I suppose. So this generation is wise. And one of the things we do, and like we really work on it like a science, is how to capture those 3 seconds. Like we spend a lot of time thinking, and even for our in classes, how to. There are times when I have my workshop with my teachers and I let them know some of the techniques that I use in breaking. I'm telling them that your class that you are teaching at the student hub is competing with the best show on Netflix. So we treat your class like a movie. There should be a beginning, a middle, an end, a hook, interaction, a closing, what's next, everything like that. So we kind of create that. Part of it kind of leads back into the problem.
Yeah.
So,
so maybe talk to that. That's a little bit off script, but like, have you run into that problem where, because we live in a digital native sort of atmosphere now. All the kids who've been born recently, like they don't know a life without the internet, without streaming, without all of these things, right? And they've been trained literally their whole life to have this short attention span. Has that been a challenge in the teaching world?
Yeah, it is definitely a challenge.
How do you get over that?
Well, I think we have built in some safety mechanisms that God created where we are attracted to certain things and we'll be able to focus. So my sons, when they play video games, they can focus for very long.
True.
So when you are 11 o'clock in the night with important things to do and you're watching a video on YouTube of these guys in the Philippines building a house, all of a sudden you focus for 30 minutes. Yeah. So there are certain things that can grab our attention and make us focus for long. You just need to be able to catch those things. And I think part of it is the first 3 seconds as well. So once they begin to see how this is directly correlated into helping me in my goals and goals that even I didn't know I have or should have, it begins to be you begin to break through.
Right.
You begin to break through.
Yeah, you start with your best content first.
Right.
And then not that the rest is
here. Also,
captivating.
Our pump right now, whether for good or bad, is exam. So our pump is CXE, that's the exam. So that pump really gets active around exam time. And it's during that time we are able to generate a lot of attention and do what we are supposed to do at the student hub. And then during the rest of the year, we try to go with the flow. It's a very seasonal business.
Yeah. But so what are some ways that you hope to see Student Hub grow in? And like, if, let's say, if you was on your deathbed and you're reflecting on your life, and you're thanking the Lord for what has happened, what would your prayers of thanks be that you would hope that you could pray?
Well, one of the things is if you student, I was going to interview features and I carry you downstairs and you saw the books. So we have titles. And I think we books will outlive everybody in the student hub. So that's if we can really impact the textbook industry in the Caribbean, that would be really great. I think we have some really good ideas and really good notes just to get everything together. So we are beginning to slowly do that. That's a little longer form business to get into. We also everything good? Yeah, we also want to go wider, expand wider. So right now we just facilitate like a couple exams, like maybe 4 exams. We want to go into different exams, ACT, GC. So we in the Caribbean, this examination board, CXC, kind of has a monopoly on things. So we want to be advocates to kind of break up that monopoly because
So if I might, would that involve like trying to affect curriculum and stuff too?
Yeah, definitely. So and in some ways, I don't want to say it like if it's hidden because it's not, but my Christianity and my beliefs in the educational system and where I think it should be at is a Trojan horse in everything that I do. So people in the student hub and then going along and is a Christian. I know that. I know that. So you understand? So I want that I have some more goals wider on that in the future. I can't really see it now.
Yeah.
But I want to see how best I can use my influence to influence the youths on a wide scale in Blista Power.
Take it over, man. It's all over.
Yeah.
Exercise dominion.
Agreed.
Yeah. And even on that note, that's a very appropriate, I think, impulse for Christians to have. We were talking in Nika earlier about how, like, look at every Ivy League school in America, for example. Who planted those schools? Who started those schools? It was Christians, right? And it's a very Christian impulse to educate people because uneducated people can't understand God's way. That was actually the foundational principle that launched both the Reformation and also even out of the first century where a lot of people were illiterate, right, in the Roman society and so on. But guess who were the people with the highest literacy? Jews and Christians. Why? Because their religion revolves around a book. To teach people to read, right? And that's the foundation of education. So that's very much our DNA as Christians, to want to impact people through education.
I think in Proverbs there's so many times they insist, seek wisdom.
Yes. Yeah. And Proverbs also says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, right? Fools despise wisdom, right? And I think that's important, maybe even a good place to kind of end this off too. That is the fear of the Lord, beginning of wisdom. So if you don't have that, you even start. Anything else you want to add?
I think I'm good there.
All right. You want to maybe tell people where they can find you, like you, follow you?
Well, if you that you search Kerwin Springer and anything, you'll find me. Kerwin Springer or the student hub and anything, you'll find us.
All right. Awesome. So yeah, if you have any student-aged children who need help with lessons, check out Student Hub and Kerwin Springer, and it's been a blessing, I'm sure, to many, many people, and I'm praying that it'll continue to be blessed by the Lord and used for His kingdom.
Oh no, maybe young Thaddeus might join up this student.
Young people, young, it's kind of fun to me.
No, I'm talking about your son.
This is true. I'll be sending them your way.
All right.
All right, thanks so much.
Yeah, man, a blessing.
Thanks for listening to the Theotivity podcast. If you found this content helpful or edifying, please leave a review on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Also, follow us on social media and consider sharing this episode to help Theotivity reach others as well. Check out theotivity.com for resources, info on how to support, and subscribe to our monthly newsletter to stay up to date on all the latest content. Until next time, live and create to the glory of God.